never imagined my old age would look like this. I never imagined I'd stand in my own living room, in the house I spent 30 years building with my husband, and watch the girl my son fell in love with look at me like I was nothing. Her name is Vanessa, 27, loud, bold, never afraid to say what's on her mind. And when she gets angry, her words hit harder than any slap ever could. But on that morning, it wasn't just her words, it was her hand. Her palm slapped across my face so fast, so sharp, the sound echoed off the walls. My cheek burned, my ears rang, and for a moment, I didn't even understand what had happened. She stood right in front of me, eyes blazing, chest rising and falling, and she yelled, "Give me the house keys. I'm done asking. I want them now." I couldn't speak. I just stared at her. The girl my son brought home. The girl I welcomed. The girl I tried so hard to treat like a daughter. But this story didn't start with a slap. It started long before that. My name is Maria Bennett. I'm 58 years old. I lost my husband, Mark, 7 years ago. He was a quiet man, hardworking, and he built this house with his own hands. Every wall, every railing, every wooden beam. This house isn't just property. It's my life's memory. My son, Daniel, is my pride. Gentle, patient, a heart too soft for this world. When he told me he'd met someone, I was happy for him. I prayed she would bring warmth into this home. I prayed she would fill the empty spaces Mark left behind. And then Vanessa walked in. Beautiful, confident, expensive taste, expensive perfume, expensive opinions. She didn't knock. She didn't hesitate. It felt like she stepped into this home already believing it belonged to her. The very first night she stayed here, I asked her gently, "Honey, what do you like for breakfast? I'll make it for you." She didn't smile. She didn't soften. She didn't even look at me. I don't eat fried stuff, and I don't drink regular coffee. I'll handle my meals myself. No thank you. No please, just statements. I brushed it off. I told myself, new marriage, new place. She's adjusting, but she never adjusted. Instead, she expected everything to adjust around her. She never called me Mom or even Maria. Only her, only your mother. Sometimes not even that. One time she was on the phone with her friend in the kitchen and said loudly, "This place feels like a retirement home. I swear, once I convince Daniel we are selling this house and getting something modern. I can't breathe in here." My heart dropped. Sell the house where I raised my son, where my husband's last breath still lives in the air. I stayed quiet. I swallowed it. But silence is something people like Vanessa take as surrender. One evening, Daniel came home exhausted. He'd worked a double shift. The man could barely stand. Vanessa was on the couch scrolling on her phone, laughing at TikToks. I got up, warmed dinner, and placed a plate for him. When I called him to eat, Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, Maria, stop treating him like a child. If he's hungry, he'll get up on his own." Daniel looked tired. He didn't respond. He didn't want to fight. He just sat and ate quietly while my heart twisted inside my chest. I didn't care about doing things for him. I cared that the girl he chose seemed to resent kindness, resent connection, resent me. The trouble escalated slowly. Little comments, little digs. Until one morning, Daniel left for work early. I was cleaning the living room when Vanessa walked out dressed like she was going somewhere expensive. Hair done, nails fresh, heels clicking across the hardwood. She looked straight at me and said, "I want the house keys." I blinked. "The what?" "The keys, Maria. This house is ours now. I need to be in control of things." I felt my chest tighten. My voice came out soft. "Sweetheart, this house will be Daniel's one day. I've never stopped him from anything. But these keys, I've held them for half my life." That was all I said. Just that, and she snapped. She stepped forward and slapped me. Hard, I stumbled back. The broom fell from my hand. For a moment I saw white, like my head was full of static. She repeated, louder this time, like I was deaf or stupid, "Give me the damn keys. I'm not asking again." I felt something break inside me. Not fear, not shame. Something deeper. Something like grief. Slowly I looked up at her and whispered, "Have you forgotten I am your elder?" She smirked, actually smirked. Respect is earned. Maria, not handed out just because you're old. And that was the moment the sensitive woman in me, the one who tried to keep peace, died. I lifted my head and said, Vanessa, you may have married my son, but you did not build this home. You did not live the nights I cried in this hallway. You did not bury the man who poured his soul into these walls. You don't get to demand anything here. She snorted and turned. Away, she thought she won. Then the front door opened. Daniel was standing there. He had come home early. He saw everything, every word and every movement. The red mark on my cheek. Didn't yell. He didn't shake. He didn't ask for explanations. He just said one single sentence. Voice quiet, steady, and terrifying. Vanessa, pack your bags. Daniel's voice didn't rise. It didn't crack. It didn't tremble. It was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before something breaks. Pack your bags. Vanessa blinked, confused at first, almost like she didn't understand the words. Then her face twisted and she laughed. Actually laughed. Are you serious right now? Because your mother is crying again? Because she can't handle being told she's not in charge anymore? She stepped toward him, hands on her hips. Daniel, grow up. I am your wife. We are supposed to build a future together. And that starts with taking control of this house. Your mother is getting older. It just makes sense for us to handle things now. Daniel didn't respond. His jaw tightened. He walked past her, to me, and touched my cheek very gently, like the slightest pressure might break me. I saw the guilt in his eyes. Guilt so heavy it felt like a weight pressing the room down. Mom! I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't here. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, I'd break. Vanessa threw her arms up. Oh my God. Are we doing this emotional movie scene now? Really? Daniel, stop acting like she's some helpless little old woman. My voice came back. And this time, it was not soft. I am not helpless. I am not weak. You think I want my son fighting his wife? No. But I will not apologize for protecting the only thing I have left. Vanessa scoffed again and pointed a finger at me, like I was some problem she needed to control. What you have left? This house? That's it? That's all your life is worth? 4 walls and old memories? Daniel snapped. Vanessa, stop. She froze. Because he didn't yell. He didn't raise his voice. But his tone changed. The way someone's tone changes when they reach the edge. Daniel stood up straighter. You slapped my mother. She provoked me, Vanessa shot back. I watched, he said quietly. There was no provocation. You hit her because she wouldn't hand you something that doesn't belong to you. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. So what? You're choosing her over me? Silence, and there it was. The line every mother fears. The line every wife uses when she's losing. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they weren't soft anymore. I am choosing what's right. Vanessa laughed again, but this time it sounded different. Shaky, desperate underneath. You want me to leave? You're throwing me out? Because your mother wants to keep control of everything? Daniel looked exhausted. Older. Like the weight of the world had settled on him in just a few minutes. This isn't control. This is home, and you don't treat home like this. Vanessa grabbed her purse and pointed toward the door. Fine, I'm calling my mother. Let's see what you say when she gets here. She stormed out the front door, heels slamming the hardwood with every step. The door slammed so hard the windows shook. The house finally went silent. But the silence hurt more than any words had. Daniel sat down on the couch like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. I sat beside him. He rubbed his hands over his face. His shoulders shook, not from tears, but from the kind of stress that eats a person from the inside. Mom, what am I supposed to do? I wanted to say I knew. I wanted to say something wise, something comforting, something a mother is supposed to say. Instead, all I could manage was, I don't know. And that scared him more than anything. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I loved her. I just don't understand why she hates you so much. I did. I understood it too well. Vanessa didn't hate me because of who I was. She hated me because of what I represented, was the connection between Daniel and his past, his childhood, his father, his foundation. She wanted to erase everything so she could rebuild him into someone new, Someone she could shape, control, own, and I was the obstacle. But I didn't say any of this. I just placed my hand over his and let him breathe. Minutes passed before the quiet was broken by the sharp blare of a car horn outside. Not once, not twice. Repeated, angry, purposeful. Vanessa was back, and she hadn't come alone. Daniel looked at me, his face stiffening. He stood up. I followed him to the window. A black SUV sat in front of the house, and stepping out of it, hair perfectly, styled designer sunglasses, lips pressed into a razor-thin frown, Vanessa's mother. Her name was Linda Marshall, and I knew exactly what kind of woman she was within 1 second of seeing her. Expensive, entitled, influential, and used to getting her way. She didn't walk to the door, she marched. Before Daniel could open it, she pushed it wide herself. "Maria," she said. Not hello, not a greeting. Just my name like it was a bitter taste, and then she turned to Daniel. "I heard you threw my daughter out of her own home." Vanessa stood behind her like a child hiding behind her mother's legs. Daniel's voice was even, but sharp. "This is my mother's house." And Vanessa crossed the line. Linda didn't blink. "Your mother is manipulating you." I stepped forward. "No, your daughter slapped me." Linda's expression did not change at all. She simply said, and the room went cold. Daniel's fists clenched. "You think putting your hands on someone's mother is normal?" Linda shrugged. "When older women refuse to let go of authority? Yes." My breath caught in my chest. It felt like I was standing in the middle of a nightmare. Vanessa folded her arms, chin lifted. "See? My mother understands." Daniel stepped forward and his voice no longer trembled. "Nobody touches my mother in this house. Ever again." Linda smiled slowly. "Oh, sweetheart, I think you forgot something." She reached into her purse, pulled out a folder, and tossed it on the coffee table. "Vanessa has already filed a spousal claim on this property. If you want her gone, we'll take the house in court." The ground beneath us shifted. Everything was about to change. For a few seconds after Linda dropped that folder on the table, nobody moved. The world felt frozen. My heartbeat was the only sound in my ears. Daniel looked down at the papers, then back at Vanessa's mother. "What is this?" he asked, voice low. Linda crossed her arms like she was settling in for a performance. "It's an intent to file a marital claim to joint assets. If Vanessa leaves this house, she will leave with half of everything, including the home." My stomach dropped. I could feel my fingers shake. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. Vanessa's eyes glittered, like she had been waiting for this exact moment. "Daniel," she said, too softly now, too rehearsed. "I don't want to fight, but your mother has made it impossible to live here." I finally found enough strength to speak. "Vanessa, I have given you respect. I have welcomed you. I have never stopped you from anything. But you want to take away the only thing I have left." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic. This house is old and depressing. We could move to something better, something modern. I'm thinking marble kitchen counters, big windows, maybe even a pool." I stared at her. She wasn't even pretending to hide it anymore. She didn't want family. She wanted property, ownership, control. Daniel sat down slowly, like his legs couldn't hold him. He rubbed his temples. "You're doing this because of keys?" he whispered. "Because she wouldn't give you keys?" Vanessa stepped closer to him. "Daniel, this was never about keys. Your mother doesn't respect me. She still treats me like I'm some outsider." My voice cracked. "You are an outsider when you try to replace someone's entire life." Vanessa spun toward me. "See, there she goes. Acting like I'm attacking your family." "I am your family!" Daniel stood again. Taller, straighter. "You don't become family by demanding. You become family by giving." Vanessa paused, just for 1 second, and that moment told me everything. She didn't know how to give, only how to take. Linda tapped her nails on the table. "Enough of this emotional nonsense. Daniel, if you want your marriage to survive, you will put your wife first. That means transferring partial ownership of the house to both of you. Today. Today." She thought she could walk in here and claim my home in one afternoon. Daniel took a deep breath. This house belongs to my mother. It's her right, legally and morally. Linda smiled. Not a warm smile. A knife smile. That can change. My body locked. I didn't want this to become ugly. I didn't want lawyers and courtrooms. I didn't want my son torn apart between his wife and his mother. But Vanessa and Linda wanted war. I tried one last time. Vanessa, come sit with me. Let's talk. Just us. We can fix this. Vanessa's expression hardened like concrete. No, I'm done talking. Either Daniel signs or we leave, and we take the house dispute to court. Daniel stared at her like she was a stranger. That sounds like a threat. Vanessa didn't blink. It is. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, something inside him had changed. The softness, the warmth, the patience, it was gone. He didn't yell, he didn't cry. He simply said, "Then go." Vanessa flinched. She wasn't expecting that. What? Go, he repeated. Take your mother. Take your attitude. Take your threats. Go, Linda stepped forward. Daniel, don't be foolish. We both know she is the only woman who will ever... He cut her off. Enough! Leave! Vanessa's face twisted in disbelief. Then anger. Then fear. But Linda grabbed her arm. Come on. Let him stew in regret. Before leaving, Vanessa turned toward me. Not with shame, not with remorse. With hate. You'll regret this, she whispered. You think he's choosing you right now? Just wait. You'll end up alone, old, and unwanted. She slammed the door behind them. The house fell silent again. But this silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like the air before a storm. Daniel sank onto the couch. His head fell into his hands. His voice cracked. Mom, what if I just ruined my marriage? I sat beside him. You didn't ruin anything. You protected your soul. He shook his head. She's my wife. And I am your mother, I answered. Love doesn't ask you to destroy one to keep the other. He didn't speak for a long time. That night, he didn't eat. He didn't sleep. He just sat by the window, staring at the driveway like she might come back. But she didn't. 3 days passed. No calls, no messages, nothing. Until the 4th day. The doorbell rang. Daniel ran to answer it, hope lighting his eyes, but it wasn't Vanessa. It was a police officer holding an envelope. For Maria Bennett, he said, handing it to me. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a notice. Vanessa had officially filed the claim. She was taking us to court, not just for the house, but for full ownership. My breath left my body. I looked at Daniel. His face went pale. He whispered, "Oh God, she actually wants to destroy us." And the worst part? This was only the beginning. When the officer left and the door closed, the house felt colder. Not physically, but in a way that seeped under the skin. Daniel sat down slowly on the couch, his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. She's really doing this, he whispered. I folded the papers carefully, even though my hands shook. If I didn't keep them neat, if I didn't stay composed, I would fall apart. And I couldn't fall apart. Not now. Not when my son needed me. She's angry, I said softly. She wants to hurt us because she didn't get what she wanted. Daniel's voice cracked. And she thinks she's justified. He leaned back, breathing in and out like he was trying not to drown. I wanted to take his pain away, just like when he was little, but I couldn't. Life doesn't let you do that. Not anymore. We sat in silence until the sun set. No TV, no sound. Just the weight of everything pressing down. Around 9, Daniel stood up. I need fresh air, he said. Just a walk. I'll be right back, I nodded. Be careful. He left, and I watched him through the window until he disappeared down the street. The evening was quiet. Too quiet. So I did what I always do when I'm hurting. I cleaned. Not because the house was messy, but because cleaning is the only thing that lets my mind settle. I wiped down counters that were already spotless. I dusted shelves that didn't need it. I straightened framed photos on the wall. And then I stopped. My hand froze on the frame of a picture. Daniel at age 12, smiling wide, holding a fishing rod next to his father. Mark's arm was around him. The sun was bright. Their faces were happy, the kind of happy that doesn't come back once it leaves. I touched Mark's face in the photo. "I wish you were here," I whispered. "I don't know how to do this alone." My voice trembled. I hadn't said his name out loud in weeks. Pain has a way of making you bury the things that hurt. I sat down at the kitchen table. The house was quiet, and then a sharp knock at the door. My heart jumped. I stood up slowly, afraid to hope. Maybe it was Daniel. Maybe he forgot his keys. Maybe the knock came again. I opened the door and froze. Vanessa was standing on the porch. She wasn't dressed like before. No heels, no perfect hair, no expensive lipstick. She looked tired. Eyes red, hoodie, sneakers, a backpack slung over her shoulder. The first thing she said was not, "Hello?" She said, "Daniel's not here, is he?" I didn't answer. I kept one hand on the door, just in case. She sighed and pushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm not here to fight. Can I come in? Just for a minute?" I should have said no. I should have shut the door. But I stepped aside. She walked in slowly. She looked around like she hadn't lived here at all. Like she was remembering something she had forgotten. She sat at the dining table without asking. Her fingers tapped softly on the wood. "I shouldn't have slapped you," she said. I looked at her, really looked. She wasn't apologizing out of guilt. She was apologizing because it benefited her. "I shouldn't have reacted like that," she continued. "But you made me feel like an outsider, like I didn't belong here." My chest tightened. "You didn't even try to belong," I answered. "You wanted control before connection." Vanessa's eyes lifted to mine. For the first time, I saw something human there. Not softness, not warmth, but fear. "I grew up watching my mom lose everything in her divorce," she said quietly. "She had nothing. No property, no savings, nothing to her name. I swore that would never be me." I blinked. So that was it. It wasn't about the house. It was about survival. And somewhere along the way, her survival turned into aggression. I sat down across from her. "Vanessa, protecting yourself is not wrong, but hurting others to feel safe is." She swallowed hard. Her voice shook. "I didn't want it to go this far." "You filed the claim," I said softly. She flinched. "My mom did. She said it was the only way to make Daniel take me seriously." "Do you want the house?" I asked. "No," she said, and I believed her. "I want security, and I want Daniel to choose me." I closed my eyes for a moment. "He did choose you, every day, until you hurt him." She looked down. "I know." We sat in silence. Not heavy, not sharp, just still. Then Vanessa said something I didn't expect. "Can you help me fix this?" I froze. "Help you?" She nodded. "You know him better than anyone. You know how to talk to him when he's like this. If you talk to him, maybe he'll listen. Maybe he'll understand." I leaned back slowly, and realization hit me. She wanted me to fix the very damage she caused. Because when everything fell apart, she still believed I was the glue, not her, not them together. Me. I felt tired, so tired. But I also understood something painful and deeply, painfully true. I was the one holding this family together long before she ever came, and maybe I still was. I spoke quietly. "I will talk to him, but not to protect you, to protect him." Vanessa's shoulders loosened in relief, but I wasn't done. "There is one condition." She looked up, uncertain. "You will drop the claim, completely. No lawyers, no threats, no paperwork." She stared at me, searching, calculating, afraid. Then she nodded. "Okay." At that exact second, the front door opened. Daniel walked in, and he froze when he saw her. The room held its breath. Vanessa stood. Daniel didn't speak. She didn't speak. I stepped back, letting the moment exist. Finally, Vanessa whispered, voice breaking, "Daniel, I want to come home." His jaw clenched, and his answer did not come fast. But when it came, it changed everything. Daniel's eyes were locked on Vanessa's. Everything else in the room disappeared. The hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the old wall clock, even my own breathing. The world shrunk down to just the two of them. Vanessa stood very still. Her hands were trembling, though she tried to hide it by clasping them behind her back. When she spoke, her voice was small, so small I almost didn't recognize her. "I just want to come home." Daniel didn't respond. He didn't move. He didn't blink. I had never seen that expression on his face before. Not anger, not sadness, distance. Like he had stepped back inside himself and locked the door. Vanessa took a slow breath and tried again. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for things to go the way they did. I made mistakes. I need you, and I miss you." Daniel's jaw tightened. His voice when it came was quiet, controlled, careful. "You filed for the house." Vanessa swallowed. "I dropped it. It's gone. I'll send you proof. You slapped my mother." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Daniel stepped further into the room. His eyes weren't cold, but they weren't warm either. "Do you know what I felt in that moment?" he asked. Not anger. Not shock. Just shame. Shame that I brought someone who would do that into this house. Into her life! Vanessa's shoulders sagged. I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe. Or fear of losing him. Or both, I know, she whispered. "And I will never do it again." Daniel shook his head. "That's not a promise you make. That's something you prove." She blinked rapidly. Her breath hitched. "I'll prove it. I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't give up on me." For a long time, Daniel didn't speak. The stillness stretched so long my chest started to ache. Finally, Daniel let out a slow, tired exhale. "All right, you can stay here, but there will be rules." Vanessa nodded instantly, relief flooding her face. Desperate relief. "Yes, anything. I'll follow anything." Daniel held up a hand. "Don't promise yet. Just listen." Her mouth closed. He continued, his voice steady. "First, you treat my mother with respect. Always. Even when you're angry. Even when you don't agree. Especially when you don't agree." Vanessa nodded, slow and sincere this time. "I will." "Second," Daniel said, "no more screaming. No fighting just to win. If you want to talk, we talk. Calmly, like adults." She wiped her cheek. I didn't even notice tears had started forming. "Okay. And third, this house stays in my mother's name. Forever. Not shared. Not discussed. Not on the table. Ever again, this one hit. I saw her flinch. A small one. But real." She hesitated. Just a second. But a second is enough to expose truth. Daniel noticed. His expression didn't change. But his voice did. "If that is a problem, you should leave now." Vanessa blinked fast, panic rising. She shook her head quickly like she was trying to erase her own hesitation. "No, I agree. I do, I understand. The house stays hers." Daniel nodded once, like a judge marking a verdict. "Okay, then you can stay." She let out a shaky breath, one that sounded like she had been underwater for days. Daniel didn't hug her. She didn't move toward him. They were close, but not together. Not yet. Vanessa went to the guest room, quietly, without slamming doors, without muttering under her breath. Daniel didn't follow her. When the door clicked shut, he finally sat down at the dining table. His shoulders slumped. His hands pressed over his face. I sat beside him and placed a hand on his back. Just once, no words. He didn't need words. He just needed presence. Some people break loudly. Some break silently. Daniel was breaking silently. He spoke without lifting his head. "Mom, what if I'm making a mistake?" My chest tightened. I had to choose my words carefully. We don't know if something is a mistake until we see what comes next. He finally looked at me. "Do you trust her?" The truth rose hot and sharp in my throat. But I couldn't lie to him, and I couldn't break him either. "I trust that people can change," I said softly. "But change doesn't happen because someone says they want to. It happens because they fight for it, day after day." He nodded slowly. He needed hope. Even fragile hope. The next week was quiet. Vanessa helped cook. She washed dishes. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't touch Daniel, unless he initiated first. She was trying, and I could see, but sometimes trying isn't enough. One evening, I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard a phone vibrate on the counter. Vanessa had left her phone there while folding laundry in the other room. The screen lit up, a text message. From Mom. I didn't mean to read it, it just flashed. Remember what I told you. Get him to sign emotionally, not legally. Make him want to give you the house willingly. My entire body went cold. Everything stopped. The kettle, the air, my heartbeat. Vanessa walked back into the kitchen, humming softly, unaware, her face peaceful. I looked at her. Really looked. Maybe she felt me staring. Because she stopped humming. Slowly, her eyes lifted to mine. She saw the phone. She saw the text. Her face drained of color. Not guilty, caught she. Opened her mouth, I held up my hand. No, not one word. She closed her mouth. She didn't try to explain. She didn't try to deny. She didn't try to spin. Because sometimes there are no excuses left. My voice was steady. Too steady. You're not here to fix anything. You're here to strategize. She swallowed hard. I stepped closer. You want my son to give you the house willingly. Not through court. Through trust. Through love. Through guilt. Vanessa's eyes filled. Not with softness. With panic. This isn't about survival anymore, I said. This is conquest. She shook her head quickly. Maria, please. We're done, I whispered. The kitchen felt like it was collapsing around us. You will tell him, I said. Not me, not later. Not if he asks. You will tell him tonight, or I will. Her breath hitched. Fear. Real fear. Because she knew. The person who destroys trust doesn't get it back. Daniel walked into the kitchen then, holding a stack of mail, unaware of the storm hanging in the air. He glanced at the two of us. What's going on? Vanessa looked at me. I looked at her. It was time. Her lips trembled. Daniel, I need to tell you something. Daniel paused halfway into the kitchen, the mail still in his hands. He looked between me and Vanessa like he'd walked into the middle of a conversation he wasn't invited to. His eyes narrowed slightly, the way they do when he senses something is wrong but doesn't want to assume the worst. Vanessa wasn't breathing. She looked like someone standing on the edge of a cliff, either about to jump or about to fall. I didn't speak for her. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. She had to do this. Finally, she forced air into her lungs. Her voice came out thin and breakable. Daniel, I need to be honest about something I did, something from before, and something now. Daniel set the mail slowly on the counter. Okay, I'm listening. Vanessa's eyes flicked toward the phone on the counter. Daniel followed her gaze. He picked up the phone. The screen was still lit. He read the message silently. His face didn't change at first. Then his jaw clenched. Not a big movement, just a tightening like he was holding back a storm. He placed the phone back down. Very carefully. Too carefully. What is this? He asked evenly. Vanessa swallowed hard. It's not what it looks like. Good, Daniel replied softly. Because what it looks like is manipulation. Her voice trembled. Daniel, I swear, I'm not trying to trick you. My mom, she was just giving advice. I wasn't going to... He didn't raise his voice. Don't lie. Something in her broke. She flinched. Not physically, but inside. Her defenses cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. But she blinked them back, like crying would make everything worse. Okay, she whispered. Okay, yes, I wanted to rebuild things, to fix what I broke. And I thought, if I showed you how I've changed, maybe you'd want to share everything with me again, including the house. Not because I asked, but because you trusted me. Daniel stared at her for what felt like an eternity. The house? He repeated, voice barely audible. We're talking about my mother's home. The home she built. The home we grew up in. The home she bled for. The home you tried to take from her. Vanessa shook her head desperately. I'm not trying to take it now. You were waiting. Daniel finished for her, waiting for me to soften. To forgive, to forget. Then you'd ask again. Except this time you'd ask with tears instead of lawyers. Her lips trembled. Daniel, please. I asked you one thing, he said, choking on the words. One thing. To leave my mother's home alone. Forever. And you agreed. She stepped forward. I did agree, but you didn't mean it. Silence. Only the clock ticking. Vanessa's breath broke. I did mean it. But I got scared. I thought, what if things don't feel the same? What if you never look at me the way you used to? I thought maybe, if I had something to offer. Daniel closed his eyes. You don't fix something you broke. By planning to take more. She reached for him. He stepped back. That hurt her more than shouting ever could. Daniel, please, she whispered. I love you. I swear I love you. I know I messed up. I panicked. I listened to my mom when I shouldn't have. I was stupid. I was scared. But I am trying. I'm really trying. Daniel looked at her then, really looked. You know what scares me? He asked quietly. You're trying, and you're still capable of this. Vanessa's face collapsed. A sound escaped her, not sobbing, not crying, something smaller, more painful, a wounded, broken exhale. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. Daniel's voice cracked. I don't want to lose you either. And just like that, there it was. The truth. Love wasn't gone. Trust was. And love without trust is just pain with a ribbon on it. Vanessa wiped her face roughly, like she was angry at her own tears. Just tell me what to do. Tell me how to fix it. I'll do anything. Daniel looked exhausted, not physically, soul tired. I need space, he said finally. Not forever. Not to punish you, just space. To breathe. Her head snapped up. You're kicking me out? No, he said gently. I'm asking you to stay with your mother for a while. Just a couple of weeks. Let us reset. Let me think without pressure. Vanessa shook her head, shaking like someone who was about to drown. No, please, if I leave, you'll forget me. You'll move on. You'll decide you don't need me. Daniel stepped closer. His voice was soft, but it landed like a hammer. If our relationship only survives if I never get space to think about it, then it isn't a relationship. It's captivity. Vanessa covered her mouth with her hand, trying not to sob. My heart hurt for him, and God help me. A small part of me hurt for her too, because love makes you foolish. Fear makes you dangerous. Daniel exhaled. You can pack tonight. I'll drive you there in the morning. I'll call you. I'm not abandoning you. I just need room. Vanessa didn't speak again. She walked to the guest room, closed the door softly. No slam. No dramatic tears, just silence. Daniel stood still for a long time after she disappeared. He didn't break. He didn't collapse. He just stared at the wall. After a moment, he spoke, voice barely above breath. Mom, am I doing the right thing? I stood beside him. You're doing the brave thing. Brave does not always mean painless. That night, the house felt like a heartbeat waiting to stop. Vanessa lay awake in the guest room, crying quietly into her pillow. Daniel sat in the living room, elbows on his knees, staring at nothing. Stood in the hallway between them, two people I cared about, both hurting, both afraid, both fragile. And I didn't know which one I was going to lose. The morning came heavy, not loud, not chaotic, heavy. The kind of morning where even sunlight feels like it has weight to it. Vanessa came out of the guest room already dressed. Hair tied back, eyes swollen but dry. She had packed her clothes into 2 bags, nothing more, nothing less. Not leaving forever, but not pretending this was temporary either. Daniel stood by the front door, car keys in hand. He didn't avoid her eyes, but he didn't hold them either. There was a kind of careful distance in him, like someone trying to carry glass without dropping it. I'll drive you, he said softly. Vanessa nodded once. I walked with them to the door. Vanessa paused, her hand on the frame. She didn't look at me at first. She just stood there like she didn't know how to begin. Then she finally spoke. I know sorry doesn't change anything, she said quietly, but I am sorry. For the slap, for the house, for everything. I didn't respond right away, because forgiveness is not like flipping a switch. It's like healing a wound. It aches before it closes. So I simply said, I hope you learn from all of this, she nodded, And for the first time, I believed she actually understood what that meant. She whispered, "Me too," and left. The car pulled away. The house went still. I cleaned the kitchen. Not because it needed it, but because I needed something to do with my hands, something that didn't require thinking, something that didn't require feeling. Daniel came back an hour later. He didn't speak. He just walked to his room, closed the door gently, and lay down. I heard the mattress shift. No crying, no yelling, just silence. Grief has many forms. His was quiet. The next few days were slow. Daniel worked. Came. Home ate, slept, the groove of survival. He texted Vanessa sometimes, not long messages, not affectionate ones, just simple. Check-ins, how are you? I hope you slept. Did you eat? Love hadn't vanished. Trust had. On the fourth evening, I was sitting in the living room knitting when Daniel walked in holding his phone. He hesitated, then sat down across from me. He stared at the wall as he spoke. "She's seeing a therapist." I looked up. She sent me the confirmation. Sessions twice a week. My chest tightened, not with anger or pity. Something in between. "That's something," I said. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, it is." Silence. Then, "I don't know what I'm feeling anymore." I set my knitting aside. "You're grieving the version of her you thought she was." He exhaled shakily. "Yeah, that was the truth. He wasn't just losing her, he was losing the memory of her, the idea of her, the hope of her, and that kind of loss cuts deeper than heartbreak." Week passed. Then, too, Vanessa didn't beg him to come back. She didn't call 10 times. She didn't guilt him. She gave him space. Real space. Hard space. Which was the first real sign of change. One evening, while Daniel was at work, I ran into our neighbor Linda while checking the mail. Linda was the kind of woman who knew everything about everyone and delivered it wrapped in concern. She patted my arm. "How are things, honey? I heard a little bit. I'm so sorry you're going through family trouble." I forced a small smile. "We're working through it." Linda nodded sympathetically. Then her tone changed. Curious. Pointed. "Well, I only ask because I saw Vanessa with someone the other day. Outside a cafe downtown." I stopped. My heart didn't drop, didn't race. It froze, quiet and suspended. "Someone?" I asked carefully. Linda nodded. "A man." Could have been nothing, of course. They were sitting close, talking. He put his hand over hers at one point. She looked upset. I breathed in slowly. Not reacting takes strength. "Thank you, Linda," I said politely. "I appreciate you telling me." Inside, I sat down at the dining table. My hands were steady, but only because I was holding myself still. There are many kinds of pain. The pain of betrayal, the pain of fear, the pain of disappointment. The worst is the pain of uncertainty. Because uncertainty grows roots. When Daniel came home, I waited. I didn't speak yet. I didn't want to ignite something while his emotions were already raw. He warmed food, sat down, ate quietly. Then I said, "I ran into Linda today." He didn't look up. "Oh, how is she?" She said she saw Vanessa at a cafe downtown. With someone. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Not slammed, not dropped, just stopped. He set it down slowly. "Who?" he asked. "She didn't know him," I said. "She said they were sitting close, talking." He touched her hand. Daniel didn't move, didn't speak, didn't react. He just sat very, very still. After a long moment, he whispered, "Maybe it was just a friend. Maybe, maybe not, but even hope." Sounded thin now. He stood up. "I need air." Grabbed his keys and left the house. I didn't follow. Some storms are meant to hit alone. Hours passed. No call, no text. I waited in the living room, without turning on the TV, without reading, without knitting, just waited. At midnight, the door finally opened. Daniel walked in. His face wasn't angry, wasn't broken. It was empty, and emptiness is worse. He sat on the couch slowly, like gravity was heavier now. I went to see her. My heart stilled. She didn't lie, he said. It was someone from her therapy group, a support person. They were talking about old patterns. She was crying. He was comforting her. Relief should have come. It didn't. He looked at me with eyes that had aged years and hours. But I realized something. Mom. I leaned forward. He didn't cry. His voice was steady. When I saw him comforting her, she looked like someone else's future, not mine. The room felt like it shifted around us. I didn't feel jealous, he said. I felt released. My breath caught. Only two kinds of people say that. The healed or the broken, and I didn't know which one my son was yet. What did you say to her? I asked quietly. He exhaled, a long, slow, final exhale. I told her I loved her, and I probably always will. But I can't go back, and I can't keep trying to save something that keeps drowning us both. My eyes blurred. He continued. She cried. I held her, not like a husband, like someone saying goodbye to a chapter of his life. The air in the room was thick enough to drink. She said she understands now. Truly, she said she'll keep working on herself. Not for me, for herself. He looked at me. And that's when I knew this was real, because she didn't ask me to reconsider. He leaned back on the couch and stared at the ceiling. Mom, I think our marriage is over. My throat tightened. I moved to sit beside him. Not to fix, not to advise, just to be there. His head rested on my shoulder, like he did when he was a child. And in that quiet, I realized, sometimes love ends not with blame, not with betrayal, not with anger, but with understanding, which hurts more, but heals cleaner. Outside, the world kept moving, but inside our home, something had just finally let go. The next morning was strangely quiet. No tension, no arguments, no tiptoeing, just quiet. Daniel moved through the kitchen with a slowness I hadn't seen before, not heavy, not defeated, just thoughtful, like he was learning to move again, step by step, in a new world that didn't have Vanessa in it. He made coffee for both of us, sat across from me at the table. Neither of us said anything for a while. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was necessary. Finally, he spoke. I'm going to file. No hesitation. No wavering, just certainty. My heart squeezed. Not out of surprise, but out of the reality settling in. Are you sure? I asked softly. He nodded. Yes. I think I've been sure for longer than I realized. I just wasn't ready to admit it. I reached out and placed my hand over his. Not guiding, not influencing, just present. Then he did something I didn't expect. He smiled. Not big, not bright. Just a small, tired smile. I thought I would feel like I was falling apart, he said. But I feel steady. I understood. Sometimes the hardest decision is peace disguised as loss. The filing process began quietly. No shouting, no revenge, no courtroom war. They agreed to a no-fault divorce. No spousal support, no shared property discussion. Everything clean. Vanessa didn't fight. Not for the house, not for money, not for anything. That more than anything, told me she was truly changing. But change doesn't always mean restoration. Sometimes change means acceptance. Weeks passed. Daniel worked, ate better, started running again, laughed sometimes. Real laughter. Not the kind he forced to look strong, the kind that came up naturally, unplanned. He was healing, and I was watching my son become himself again. One Sunday afternoon, as I was tending to the small herb garden in the backyard, I saw someone walking up the sidewalk. Vanessa, hair loose, sweatshirt and jeans, no makeup, no performance. Just a human being, stripped down. I stood up slowly. She stopped at the gate and didn't come closer. Hi, she said quietly. Hello, I replied. We didn't approach each other. The The space between us was intentional. She took a breath. A steadying one. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for how you handled everything. For not trying to turn him against me. For not humiliating me. For not hating me." I didn't respond yet. I let her speak. "I know I earned that slap back from the universe, and I got it. Not from you. From life, from myself. I had to sit with who I was. And it was ugly. But I'm not running from it anymore." Her voice broke. Not with drama, but with honesty. "I wanted to tell you. I'm moving. Out of state. I got into a treatment center program. It's long-term. 6 months, maybe longer." There was no plea in her tone. No hope of some last-minute reconciliation. Just a farewell. I nodded, and my voice was softer than I expected. "That's a brave choice." She smiled a little, and for the first time it wasn't a smirk. It wasn't manipulative. It wasn't defensive. It was just human. "Tell Daniel I'll sign whatever he needs. I'm not running from the divorce, and I'm not asking him to wait for me. I just want him to be happy." I swallowed. "I'll tell him." She nodded, wiped a tear with the back of her hand, not dramatic. "Just tired. Thank you," she whispered. I didn't say good luck. I didn't say take care. I simply said, "I hope you become someone you're proud of." She closed her eyes, then turned, and walked away, not backward, not hesitating, forward. When Daniel came home that evening, I told him everything. He didn't speak for a long time, just sat with it, sat with all of it. Then he whispered, "I hope she finds peace," and he meant it. Real love does not always end in marriage. Real love ends in wanting the other person to heal, even if the healing happens without you. Months passed. The divorce finalized quietly. Daniel didn't date, didn't rush into someone else, didn't fill the silence with noise. He grew into himself. Again, he redecorated his room, picked up woodworking, started volunteering at a local youth center. He smiled more. He slept better. He stood taller one evening. We were having dinner together, just the two of us, like old times, when he looked up suddenly and said, "I've been thinking about something." I raised my eyebrows. "Oh?" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "What if we renovate the downstairs and make it a little apartment?" "For you," I blinked. "Why?" "So you don't have to think about moving or downsizing later. So you can stay here. This house is your home, and it should always be." My chest tightened. Tears came, not the dramatic flood, but the warm, quiet ones that slip down without warning. "You don't have to do that," I whispered. He reached across the table and took my hand. "You're my mother. I want you here, not because you need help, but because I want you in my life, my heart, broke and healed in the same moment." We sat together in the fading evening light, the house warm, safe, and whole. But life has a way of shifting when we least expect it. A week later, Daniel went to volunteer at the youth center like he always did, but that evening, he didn't come home alone. He walked through the door with someone beside him, someone I had never seen before, someone who would change everything. Daniel walked through the front door, holding the hand of a woman I had never seen before. She was smiling softly, not in a flashy, attention-grabbing way, but a quiet, genuine smile. Her hair fell naturally over her shoulders. No makeup, simple clothes, comfortable shoes. She radiated calm. I froze. Daniel noticed my reaction. He gave a small, reassuring nod. "Mom, this is Emily," he said. "She volunteers at the youth center. I wanted you to meet her." Emily stepped forward, extending her hand politely. "It's so nice to meet you. Daniel talks about you a lot." Her voice was soft, warm, unassuming, and I noticed immediately. There was no ulterior motive in it. No manipulation. No hint of control. Just warmth. I shook her hand carefully. "It's nice to meet you too." Daniel smiled slightly. A rare, genuine smile. "Emily's been helping with some of the programs. She's amazing with the kids." I nodded, my gaze shifting between them. Something felt different here. Calm, safe, balanced, not dramatic. Not tense. Not the tightrope we had been walking with Vanessa. Emily stepped back, letting the space breathe between us. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said softly. "I just wanted to meet the woman who raised such a kind, thoughtful man." I blinked. That was unexpected. A compliment, unshaped by selfish intent. I felt a warmth I hadn't felt in months, and I realized something. This was the first time I had seen someone care for Daniel without expectation. Daniel laughed quietly, softly, like a release of air after being underwater too long. "Mom, Emily's different, and I want you to see that." I nodded slowly, measuring my response. "I appreciate that, Daniel." Emily's smile remained gentle. "I can see how close you two are, and that's special." I felt a small sting. Yes, a little jealousy, but it wasn't sharp. It wasn't consuming. It was just real. And I let it sit because I knew it was deserved. Daniel needed happiness too. We spent the evening talking. Not forced conversations, not tense negotiations, just casual, quiet chatter. Emily talked about the kids at the center. Daniel laughed at her stories. And I noticed something I hadn't realized in months. Peace had entered the house. The next few days were similar. Emily came by occasionally to help Daniel with projects at the center. She never overstayed her welcome. She never overstepped. She wasn't trying to compete with the past. She simply existed in the present, quietly, without demand. And Daniel, he started to open up again. He asked my opinion on small things, recipes, weekend plans, furniture choices. He smiled at small jokes. He told me stories from the center. He even asked me to teach him a new recipe one evening, something I hadn't done with him in years. I realized I hadn't noticed how heavy the air had been until it lifted. Every corner of the house felt lighter, every conversation easier, every laugh less forced. One evening, Emily stayed late, helping Daniel prepare for a youth event the following weekend. I watched them work together from the kitchen doorway. Emily laughed genuinely at something Daniel said, and for the first time, I saw him laugh without restraint. Full laughter. The kind that makes your chest ache a little because it's so pure. I felt a quiet happiness. Not dramatic, not blinding, just relief, gratitude, hope. But even in hope, I knew shadows of the past lingered. Vanessa's absence was a wound. The divorce, the emotional scars, they didn't disappear overnight. Daniel's heart was cautious, protective now. Emily didn't try to rush him, and that was exactly what made her different. She allowed him space to heal. Weeks passed. Slowly, Daniel's confidence returned. Not just in himself, but in trusting again. In allowing someone to care for him without strings. And I saw it, day by day. One evening, as we were finishing dinner, Daniel looked across the table at me. His expression was soft, full of something I hadn't seen in a long time. Peace. "Mom," he said, "thank you. For everything. For staying strong. For being here. For helping me find my way back." I swallowed, feeling tears sting my eyes. "You've always been capable of finding your way, Daniel. I just walked beside you." Emily quietly smiled from the couch where she was folding laundry from the center's donation drive. She didn't speak, didn't comment. She just smiled, a warm, human smile that didn't ask for attention or approval. She understood her place in the moment. She respected it, and that night, as I lay in my room, I realized something profound. The past could hurt us. The past could break us. But the future, if we were brave enough to let it, could heal us. Slowly, quietly, without fanfare. But real. For the first time in months, I slept without dread, without wondering if chaos would return, without fearing the next phone call, the next knock at the door, without carrying the weight of someone else's manipulation. The house was still ours. Daniel was finding himself again. And Emily, she wasn't replacing anyone. She was simply a reminder that life continues, that love, when true, doesn't demand. It nurtures. And I knew, deep in my heart, that this chapter of our lives, this story of pain, betrayal, and recovery, was far from over. But for the first time, it was no longer defined by fear, or anger, or control. It was defined by resilience, by growth, by the quiet power of surviving trauma and choosing hope. Weeks turned into months. The house had finally begun to feel like home again. Not just a place, but a safe space. The tension that had lingered like a shadow for years was finally lifting. Daniel was laughing more, sleeping better, and I could see the way he carried himself, calmer, steadier. Emily became a quiet presence in our lives. She didn't impose. She didn't rush anything. She was patient, and that patience slowly started to break down the walls Daniel had built around his heart. They worked on projects together, cooked together, and even laughed at the smallest things. There was no drama, no pretense, just presence. One evening, I walked into the living room and saw them sitting on the couch, working on a community fundraising plan for the youth center. Emily's head rested lightly against Daniel's shoulder. He had his arm around her, not possessively, but naturally. I felt a pang, an unexpected twist of protectiveness, but it was tempered by relief. For the first time in months, I could see him truly happy. I cleared my throat softly. They looked up. Daniel smiled, a genuine smile that warmed the room. Emily straightened immediately, her calm demeanor still intact, and smiled back. "Dinner's almost ready," I said. "You two can finish up after," Emily nodded politely. "Thank you, Maria. I don't want to interrupt." I shook my head. "You're not interrupting. You're welcome here." They returned to their work, quietly. But I noticed something odd. Daniel's phone kept buzzing on the coffee table. Not a few times. Dozens of notifications lighting up the screen. He glanced at it briefly, frowned, and ignored it. I walked over, curious. "Who keeps messaging you?" Daniel's expression tightened. "It's Vanessa." My stomach dropped. I wasn't surprised. I had half expected she might try to reach out eventually. "Have you responded?" I asked. "No," he said quietly. "I won't." Emily watched silently, her expression calm but attentive. "Do you want me to leave?" she asked gently. Daniel shook his head. "No, you should stay." I realized then that Emily understood the delicate balance. She wasn't trying to be his savior. She wasn't trying to compete. She was just here, and that made her different from the chaos Vanessa had brought into our lives. That night, the messages didn't stop. One after another. Demands, apologies, manipulative pleas. "I've changed. I need you back. Don't listen to your mother. You'll regret this." Daniel didn't respond to any of them. He didn't look at them. Not even once. "Do you want me to block her?" I asked finally. He shook his head. "No, I need to see that she's still trying. To understand the consequences of her choices. Not to manipulate, but just to learn. For her own sake." Emily reached over and touched his hand lightly. "You're doing the right thing. Staying firm doesn't make you cruel. It makes you strong." I watched him squeeze her hand, a subtle acknowledgement. His trust was slowly returning, not just in her, but in himself. He could set boundaries without guilt. The next morning, the doorbell rang. I answered it. Outside was a courier with a large envelope addressed to Daniel. Inside was official paperwork. Divorce finalization confirmation, complete. Signed, not contested. Not manipulated. Daniel came into the room as I read it aloud. He exhaled, long and slow. "It's done," he said. "Completely done." Emily was there beside him. She smiled softly. "Congratulations. You've survived something very hard." He nodded. "Yeah, and now we rebuild." The rebuilding wasn't easy. Not emotionally, not mentally, but it was honest. No schemes, no ultimatums, no slaps, no threats, no silent manipulations. Only effort, patience, and time. Weeks later, while we were painting the downstairs apartment for me, Daniel paused mid-stroke. He looked at Emily, then at me. "I never thought I'd see the house feel this alive again," he said quietly. "After everything, I thought it would always feel haunted." I smiled, despite the ache I still felt from the past. Haunted houses can become homes again. It just takes care, attention, and some love that doesn't demand anything in return. Emily nodded. "That's what I've been learning too. That love isn't control. It's presence, and support, and patience." Daniel's eyes softened. "I wish Vanessa could understand that someday," I sighed. "Some people only understand it for themselves, not for others." And that night I realized the full weight of our journey. Pain had walked through this house like a storm, leaving devastation behind. But what remained, the rebuilding, the laughter, the calm, the trust that was slowly being restored, was stronger than anything we had lost. Even Daniel's heart, fractured and cautious, was beginning to heal. And with Emily's quiet, steady presence, it wasn't just healing. It was learning to believe again. But just as we were finding rhythm, just as we were settling into a fragile peace, something unexpected arrived. A letter. No return address. No name. Just typed words on crisp paper. You think it's over, but the storm isn't finished. You've only survived the first wave. Daniel read it aloud, his voice steady but low. My blood ran cold. Emily's hand found his, gripping gently. Whatever it is, she said, we face it together. I nodded. Yes. Together. And in that moment, I realized our story wasn't over. Not even close. The past, Vanessa, the manipulations, they had left their mark. And the storm wasn't done testing us yet. But for the first time, I believed we could survive it. Together. The letter sat on the kitchen counter, stark against the pale wood. Its edges sharp, its words colder than ice. Daniel held it in his hands, his jaw tight, knuckles white. Emily stood beside him, her eyes scanning every corner of the room, alert, cautious. I felt the same tension settle in my chest, the same nervous knot that had haunted our home during Vanessa's schemes. But this was different. This isn't Vanessa, Daniel said quietly, almost to himself. She's gone. The divorce is final, I shook my head. Doesn't matter. Sometimes people leave, and chaos follows anyway. Emily's voice was steady, grounding. Whatever it is, we handle it together. Panic doesn't solve anything. He nodded slowly, but his eyes were dark, thoughtful. The wording, it's deliberate. They want fear. They want doubt. They're trying to unsteady us. I set my cup of tea down hard. Then we don't let them. No games, no manipulation. We face it head on. The following days were tense. Every sound made me jump. The mail clattering, the wind tapping the windows, a distant car horn outside. Daniel became hyper-aware. Emily remained calm, quietly observant, always a step behind him, supporting him without smothering. Then the first incident happened. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when a window rattled. Not from wind. Someone had tried to open it. My heart slammed in my chest. Daniel came running from the living room, Emily following immediately. We checked. Nothing was missing. Nothing was broken. But the message was clear. Someone had been inside the property. Someone had been testing the boundaries. Security cameras, Daniel said immediately. We need cameras, motion sensors, alerts on our phones, Emily nodded, and locks. Reinforce every point of entry. We don't leave anything to chance, I helped. We installed cameras, changed locks, and secured every entrance. Every corner of the house became monitored. Every shadow felt like it was being watched. Then the second incident. A voicemail on Daniel's phone. No voice, just breathing. Slow, deliberate, enough to send shivers down our spines. Emily held his hand tightly as he listened, his expression unreadable. They're escalating, he whispered. They want control. They want fear. I could feel the tension coiling tighter in my chest. This wasn't just about Vanessa anymore. This wasn't about old wounds. This was someone new. Someone dangerous. Someone testing how far we would bend before we broke. Emily was calm, though her eyes were sharp. We face it together, not afraid, not reacting, not letting them dictate our lives. We began to create routines. Daniel trained himself to stay vigilant without panic. Emily stayed nearby, alert and steady. I became the anchor, observing, analyzing, and keeping the home functional. One night, after everything had quieted, I found Daniel sitting on the porch, staring at the empty street. Emily joined him silently, slipping her hand into his. I hate that we're living like this, I said softly. Daniel didn't look at me. I know, but this is life now. You survive it, or it survives you, and I won't let it survive me. Not my home, not my family. Emily's voice was calm but firm. And you won't, because we're not alone. Not anymore. Days turned into weeks. The intrusions never stopped completely, but they became predictable, allowing us to prepare, allowing us to grow stronger. And then came the moment that changed everything. We were in the living room, Daniel reading a book, Emily folding laundry. I was knitting quietly when the front door slammed open. A man stood there, tall, broad, masked, threat in his posture, a sense of deliberate menace radiating off him. Daniel moved instinctively, shielding Emily, his voice low and controlled. "Who are you? What do you want?" No answer. Just a step forward. I felt a surge of fear, but I didn't run. I didn't falter. I stepped forward beside Daniel. "You're not taking anything from us." "Not now, not ever," the man hesitated. That pause was all we needed. Daniel lunged, using strength I hadn't seen in him in months, pulling him back. Emily called 911. Within moments, the police arrived, and the man was detained. Afterward, as we sat together in the living room, hearts still racing, I realized something crucial. The storm would always come. Life would always test us. But Daniel, Emily, and I, we had become unbreakable. Not because fear disappeared, but because we faced it together. We rebuilt trust. We rebuilt safety. We rebuilt love. And even in the shadow of threats, even in the memory of Vanessa's betrayal, we knew we were stronger than any storm life could throw at us. Daniel finally spoke, voice quiet but full of certainty. "No matter what happens, I'm done living in fear. We take the house, the family, and our lives back. Together." Emily squeezed his hand. I nodded. The past could haunt. The storm could rage. But together, we survived. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The house finally felt calm again. Not just the absence of chaos, but the presence of peace. Windows no longer rattled. Mail no longer carried hidden threats. The shadows in the corners seemed to shrink. And Daniel, for the first time in months, laughed without caution, smiled without reservation, and moved through his home with a sense of ownership. Not just of property, but of his life. Emily had become a quiet anchor. She didn't demand attention. She didn't replace what was lost. She existed alongside Daniel and me as a force of calm and stability. Watching them together, I realized something I hadn't admitted before. Life could be gentle again. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. One Sunday morning, we all sat in the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the dust motes in the air like tiny stars. Daniel poured coffee, Emily prepared toast, and I made scrambled eggs. The air was warm, full of normalcy, the kind that can feel almost sacred after months of chaos. Daniel looked up at me and smiled softly. "Mom," he said, "thank you for holding this family together, for not letting me fall apart, for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." My throat tightened. "You did all the work, Daniel. I just helped remind you who you were." Emily leaned over and placed a hand on his arm. "And you did it without resentment. That's rare. That's beautiful." Daniel chuckled softly, the sound full and natural. "It's easier when people around you are honest and steady." I watched them both. Quiet, tender, real. And I realized that this moment, was the reward of surviving storms, betrayals, and heartbreak. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. But it was alive. Over the following months, life regained a rhythm. Daniel and Emily grew closer, but cautiously, carefully, allowing trust to build naturally. I became more involved with them both, not as a mediator, but as a family again. The house, once a battleground, became a sanctuary. Vanessa never returned. She didn't contact Daniel again. And although there were moments when her absence stung, small reminders of the past, I understood that she had chosen a path for herself, just as Daniel and I had chosen ours. The past had shaped us, yes, but it no longer controlled us. One evening, as we were all sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Daniel reached over and held Emily's hand. He glanced at me and smiled. "Mom, I know the road hasn't been easy, and we're not perfect, but we're together, and that counts for more than anything else." I nodded, my eyes misting. "Yes, it counts. More than you realize." Emily squeezed his hand gently. "We've all learned something. About patience, about trust, about love. The past is there, but it doesn't define us." Daniel turned to me, voice low and steady. "And Mom, thank you for letting me love again. For showing me that even after betrayal and heartbreak, it's possible to rebuild, to live fully, to trust fully, to love fully. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I reached out and held both their hands. "We've survived the storm," I whispered, "and we've built something stronger than before. Something real, something lasting." For the first time in years, the house felt alive, not haunted by fear, anger, or regret, but vibrant with life, love, and hope. Daniel had reclaimed his life. Emily had become a steady presence, and I had witnessed it all, standing beside them, knowing that survival doesn't just mean enduring. It means growing, healing, and finding peace after the darkest storms. And in that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky was painted in shades of gold and pink, I realized that we weren't just surviving anymore. We were thriving. The past had tested us, threatened us, and tried to break us. But together, we had emerged stronger, wiser, and unshakable. And this time, there was no storm fierce enough to touch us. We were home. We were family. We were finally free.